Welcome to another fun-filled Monday edition of Second City Sports. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakeena McGee, which is she. I am Sidney Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan_McGee on the IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app. You want to know why? Because we said so, that's why. And also, so you can watch any of our other 5 live shows throughout the week, including this one, Second City Sports. If you happen to miss any of our live shows, you can go back and listen and watch them at your own leisure. Make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago, all social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Sports Zone Chi. Once again, at Sports Zone Chi, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And if you want to catch the audio version of this podcast, Second City Sports, you can do so by subscribing to War on Anchor. We're available on all podcast platforms, including that iHeartRadio app. Just type in your search engine boxes on those podcast platforms, WARR on Anchor. And you can follow War Media at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, at War Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have an opinion on any of our topics that we are going to cover during this 2-hour extravaganza, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comments section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll and or do something stupid, Lakeena will give you the Tristan Thompson boot.
Bye-bye.
I love when I say that. Lakeena, let's kick off this Monday edition of Second City Sports with college basketball. For the third time in 5 years, 2 of our teams for the great state of the land of Lincoln, that's the Illinois Fighting Illini and Loyola Ramblers of Chicago, will represent this great state in the NCAA Tournament. Of course, the Fighting Illini will take on the 4th seed in the South region. They'll take on the number 13 seeded Chattanooga Mocs on late Friday afternoon. But in the same region, number 7 Ohio State will face the number 10 seed Loyola Ramblers of Chicago in the South region. That game will be seen on CBS on Friday at 11:15 a.m. in the morning. Lakeena, we did our show last night with Andy Mazer breaking down all the brackets from all 4 regions. For those of you that missed it, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube or Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook, and you can watch the episodes there. We'll retweet the links out leading up to the big tournament, which starts on Thursday. We know about the first 4 playing games on Tuesday and Wednesday, but if you know your history like we do, the tournament actually starts on Thursday. But we'll retweet the links out today, tomorrow, and then leading up to Thursday's tournament opener. So you can catch our picks along with Andy Mason's picks from WGN Radio Chicago. Lakeena, Illinois, a few weeks ago, many people picked them to go to the Final Four. I wasn't on that camp, but looking at that bracket yesterday when they were released, there's an opportunity for them to go far, perhaps the Sweet 16, in my opinion.
Well, but also, too, they could upset, too. I mean, that Tennessee-Chattanooga team, Malachi Smith, who is from Illinois, he went to Belleville. He's one of the guys, the veteran guys on that squad. So I know that maybe Illinois fans may not know too much about Chattanooga, but he's one of the main players on that team. And look, I know that Kofi Coburn, I guess, that said something, I guess, on social media, I guess, and saying that not necessarily disrespecting the Mocs of Chattanooga, but sort of, saying that, hey, not necessarily like guaranteeing that they'll go to the Final Four, but we're going to go far and such. So you better hope that that the Tennessee Mocs don't take that personally. So you better be careful how he said that. But look, they're one of those feast or famine teams. Could they go far? Maybe go to the Elite Eight? Sure. But could they very well lose to Chattanooga? Sure. I mean, it's sort of one of those things where when you're in a one or done situation in a tournament, that's usually what happens. So they got a lot of big guys up front. Chattanooga does, and so it's going to be interesting to see how they match that. Cabela has to step up, Trent Frazier has to step up, Coburn has to kind of put his money where his mouth is, if you will. So it's sort of one of those things where you're kind of like, okay, you know what, I don't want to go too far into this because I want to get to some of these other games, in the Loyola game as well. But if you're Illinois, I think I would say just don't take them lightly. That's all I'll say on that front.
Yeah, we talked about this on our show with Andy Mazer last night, and you can go back and watch it on YouTube or Facebook via Sports Zone Chicago's pages. And we talked about Illinois having trouble the last couple of years, especially with the athletic big men, especially if Kobe Coburn gets into foul trouble. And like you said, Illinois has to be aware that you have to have other guys step up, like Jacob Granderson, Trent Frazier, my guy Alfonso Plummer. He's a very streaky shooter, but you need some scoring. What about Coleman Hawkins coming off the bench? He did very well in their loss last Friday against Indiana in the Big Ten tournament. So you had to have other guys step in regardless. But like you said, Illinois has to put their money where their mouth is, especially after what happened a year ago, losing to Loyola in the round of 32.
And I think that's what I'm sure those a lot of those guys that were there are probably still thinking about that. So maybe they'll use that as motivation. Who knows? But like I said, we've seen Illinois do very well, but we saw what happened in the Big Ten tournament against Indiana. They just didn't show up and didn't hit their shot. So either way, these things could happen. But again, we'll see.
We'll see. Now in the other game in the South bracket featuring our Illinois teams, I should say, the Loyola Ramblers of Chicago will face the number 7 seed Ohio State Buckeyes. As I mentioned before, that game will be seen on CBS at 11:15 Chicago time on Friday morning. Lakeena, Brady Norris, and Lucas Williamson will lead this bunch of new look Ramblers. That's a very different team. And of course, they went to the Final Four in 2018, led by ex head coach Porter Moser. But Drew Valentine, in his first year at the age of 30, has led this team to the NCAA tournament once again. I believe this is the first time in school history they have gone to the NCAA tournament in back-to-back years.
Yes, it is true. And look, you got look. This isn't those guys' first real Lucas Williamson and such. I mean, they know how to do it. They're not the Bright Lights is not going to be they're not going to be afraid of Ohio State or whatever. So this is a 7-10 matchup. You can probably say that Ohio State could reverse that Loyola should have been the 7 and Ohio State should have been the 10. But you know what? This should be a really good game regardless. I mean, it's can't if the Ramblers can force Ohio State to make bad shots early, and they can tend to do that, then we'll probably see if they maybe they can pull off I wouldn't say upset, because the 7-10 to me is up there with the 8 or 9, because it's a coin flip, but then they could definitely pull off it. But if we saw what happens, they play Ohio State kind of plays a similar style to Drake, so. And they had a hard time with Drake. Now they did beat Drake, the third time to clinch the ticket, but it's sort of one of those things where, again, you don't know what's going to happen. So we'll see what happens in this game on Friday.
I thought that Seth Davis of CBS Sports brought up a great point last week when Loyola beat Drake for the Missouri Valley Conference tournament title. Cameron Cugway was a key factor in upsetting Illinois in last year's tournament because he's an athletic big guy that who not only played defense, but he could score around the basket as well. Loyola doesn't have that this year. They have a bunch of shooters, and they get in your chest for 40 minutes. And I want to see if they could keep up with that intensity in this game against Ohio State coming up on Friday, because EJ Liddell is a beast inside. For those of you that haven't watched Ohio State basketball from the Big Ten all season, EJ Liddell is a beast, and he's going to be tough to contain. Loyola is going to depend on their defensive style big time. Now, who's going to be that third guy to step up for Loyola from the offensive end? We shall see, but they're going to need someone to step up to help out Brady Norris and Lucas Williamson.
Be interested to see. Excuse me. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that, because I feel like this is sort of this could be another one of those, like I said, those toss-up games where you could probably either one of those scenarios could happen. So it's going to depend on what can they do to kind of like get force Ohio State to make tough shots, and I'm sure Ohio State will try to force Loyola to force shots as well. So it's gonna be a chess match to see who ends up doing what. But this should be another good game on, like I said, on Friday.
Yes, and as I said before, that game will be seen on CBS Friday morning at 11:15 a.m. Central Standard Time. That's Loyola and Ohio State. You're listening to Second City Sports, the Monday edition. We're live in the 11 color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakeena here with you for this first half hour. We're breaking down some of the key games of the 2022 men's NCAA bracket, which was released yesterday. Lakeena, I want to go to the West bracket. Of course, Gonzaga's in the overall number 1 seed. They'll face Georgia State. I'm liking this 8-9 matchup with Boise State and Memphis. Of course, you have number 4 Arkansas versus Vermont, and this is another matchup that I'm looking forward to. I'm calling it right now with an upset. Number 10 Davidson versus number 7 Michigan State.
Well, look, it could be. I mean, look, if Davidson hits their threes, sure. I mean, they
Hmm.
could probably upset Michigan State, but again, there's 7-10, so it wouldn't be considered an upset in my opinion. But like I said,
Hmm.
if they make their threes, I think Davidson could probably pull off the, quote unquote upset, and whatnot. But it'll be interesting to see what that one does. Alabama and whoever wins the Rutgers Notre Dame 11,
Hmm.
first four game, that's tomorrow. I mean, it'll be very interesting. I mean, I think, look, Alabama's another one of those feast or famine teams. When they're good, they're good. When they're not, they're not. So,
Hmm.
and Rutgers kind of plays a very similar style to Alabama. So it'll be interesting to see once they get past Notre Dame, which I think that'll happen. But that should be a really good matchup, regardless. Now going into the East region, it's sort of it. I feel like this region, I think Baylor kind of got the short end of the stick, if you will, being the
Yes.
defending champion, and that region is loaded with North Carolina, Marquette, St. Mary's, whoever wins that first four game between Wyoming and Indiana, UCLA, Texas, Purdue, Kentucky,
Hmm.
Murray State. I mean, it's sort of one of those days where you're kind of like, okay, this is going to be a tough way to get out of that region for Baylor. Murray State, they got a veteran squad. San Francisco, that 7-10 matchup on Thursday. That should be a fun one. This is going to be like first to 90. Could probably end
Yeah.
up winning that because they both have great backcourt and they can definitely score both teams. So this could be one of those things as well. St. Mary's, I mean, they got a lot of big guys up front, so we'll see. I'm sure they can go win a couple of games. UCLA, if they could, stay healthy, that's another thing that's kind of been sort of hitting UCLA. Purdue, again, I don't know. It's feast or fan with them as well. So, who assuming they get out of that region against Yale, will Tech still have juice left? I mean, they might run out of gas against Texas, so that'll be an interesting one as well. So that East region is pretty. That West region is pretty tough, but so is the East region as well.
Yeah, with the East region, Kentucky and head coach John Calipari, he has a quote unquote easy road. And you mentioned that the teams that are stacked in that region, in the Kentucky's half of the bracket, they could easily roll past teams like Purdue and Texas, or Tech if they decide to upset Texas in the first round. So Kentucky will have its challenges, but I don't think it's going to be as hard as with Baylor on their side of the bracket. Along with Baylor, you have North Carolina, Marquette, and UCLA, who made it to the Final Four a year ago. So Baylor is going to be tough for them to make it out of this region. They're going to have their challenges, but we assume that they're going to get by Norfolk State. In a potential second round matchup, Baylor will have to face Marquette or North Carolina. In my opinion, it will be North Carolina.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, Marquette's, but they're young, so we'll see if they can
Hmm.
hang with North Carolina. But that should be a fun one there. That 8-9 matchup going to the going to the South region. Arizona is number one seed in that region. You got Seton Hall, TCU. That should be a fun one. You got Houston and UAB, an old Conference USA matchup for all you
Hmm.
Conference USA fans. Like I said, we talked about Illinois and Chattanooga. Like I said
Hmm.
before, that's going to be a tough one. Colorado State and Michigan. I mean, Michigan, here's your chance to prove that you belong in the tournament. Since no one thinks you belong, so here's your
And
chance
Juwan Howard,
to
keep your hands to yourself.
yeah. Tennessee. I have to say Tennessee. That's a team I'm going for. You got Kennedy Chandler, um, uh, uh, Rick Barnes. I think feel like doesn't get the credit that he does. Jones Jenkins. I mean, he's a really good. He's one of the all SEC. So he's definitely that team's stacked. So I feel like they could probably go far in this region. Maybe perhaps give Arizona a hard time. Villanova. I think whoever, assuming they get out of that game against Delaware. They play whoever wins the Ohio State Loyola matchup. I think they have a veteran
Mhm.
squad. They feel like they have a shot to, they have a chance to win another title for Jay Wright. So that should be a fun one as well. So this is another fun region. So Arizona. I know a lot of people got Arizona coming out of this region, but there are a couple of teams that might have something to say about that.
Yeah, and I think Tennessee will have a big say about that. They could potentially have a Sweet 16 matchup with Villanova. I think that could be a classic game if that matchup happens. Now, going to Tennessee, I want to ask you about the Volunteers. I watched them one time all season. It sounds like you watched them more than once. But I was watching ESPN yesterday, and Jay Bills kept on talking about Tennessee perhaps grabbing one of those the last number one seed in their region. Did you think they were worthy of that instead of getting the
Oh,
three seed?
they should have gotten the 2, I feel like. I think they, especially
Okay.
since they've beaten both Auburn, they beat Kentucky twice, including over the weekend. So
Hmm.
I feel like maybe I really feel like they got jobbed out of that 2 seed. But you know what? Look, I think I said it before. I think they've got the guys that can definitely, have Tennessee go far. I feel like Rick Barnes doesn't get credit that he deserves for building, that Tennessee program. A lot of people thought that was a women's program, but Rick Barnes,
Hmm.
after Bruce Pearl left, some people thought that, oh well, they're going to go back to kind of being an afterthought. Rick Barnes came in, got guys that I don't want to say, I don't want to say they were like kind of like, cast aside, but or a bunch of misfits, but he kind of got like middle tier guys to kind of come in and buy in. They got a couple of guys from
Hmm.
Serbia, Verasco. We talked about Kennedy Chandler. Fulkerson is a really good, can shoot the three very well. I feel like they can definitely, have the shot of perhaps maybe going far in this tournament. And I'm sure hopefully they'll use this as a number one seed. I mean, like I said, Jordan James, Josiah Jordan James is one of those guys that can definitely, right there as well. So yeah, I think that they got the team to do it. And I feel like they have a shot to perhaps maybe go far and perhaps come out of that region and perhaps maybe kind of tell Arizona, oh, no, you're not getting out of this region. So we'll see.
You're listening to Second City Sports live in 11 color for the Monday edition right here on Sports Zone Chicago City. Lakeena are here with you. We have a few minutes left. Let's wrap up our NCAA tournament talk with reviewing the Midwest region. Kansas has the number one seed in that bracket, followed by Auburn at number 2. LSU number 6. They have their issues. We'll get into that in just a moment. Number 3, Wisconsin, and number 4, Providence. Now, here's some of the key matchups to look out for in the Midwest region. Number 5, Iowa versus number 12, the Richmond Spiders. Of course, they won the Atlantic 10 tournament title yesterday over Davis, and they stole a bit from Dayton in many people's opinion, including the head of the committee. LSU, with their head coaching problems, they have an intern in there now due to violations. They'll face number 11 Iowa State, the Cyclones. Number 3, Wisconsin will face number 14, Colgate, or as Andy Mazer, our good friend from WGN Radio last night, called him toothpaste. But here's an intriguing matchup to pay attention to. Number 7, USC, the Trojans are back in the NCAA tournament once again. They'll face number 10 seeded, the Miami Hurricanes. Yes, that's a football school, but they have a pretty good basketball program too. They were picked by many experts to finish dead last in the ACC. They finished with a 23-10 record, 4th in that conference, but this team can get after it defensively.
Yeah, they can. They're probably one of the best defensive teams. I think they were right up there in how many points not to give up. I think they're right there in like the top 2 or 3. And they've definitely got a shot. I mean, Charlie Moore, for those of you DePaul fans who remember that name, he's down there in Miami now, helping that team, going back to the tournament for the first time in a couple of years. That should be a really good matchup, between SC, because I feel like both teams play like very different styles. USC likes to score. Miami likes to slow it down, so we'll see which one comes out on top there. I said it before yesterday during our preview with Andy, and I'll say it again here. I think Wisconsin, they better watch out for Colgate. Well, Colgate has got a really good senior latent team, and I feel like this is their third trip back in the last 5 years. They're not going to be afraid to Wisconsin. So if you're a Badger fan, I'm not saying that they'll beat Wisconsin Colgate, but I think they better watch them out, especially if Johnny Davis is banged up. So if he has a bad day, other guys gonna have to step up. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to that one. LSU with Iowa State. I mean, that whole situation with Will Wade. I mean, I know that other things. We won't go into that. We don't have the time, but this could go one of 2 ways. They could use it. The Tigers could use this as motivation to go try to make a nice run in the tournament, or they could end up losing to Iowa State, which they're more than capable of doing. So that should be another fun one, a 6-11 matchup to look out for. Iowa and Richmond. Iowa is kind of like the trendy team to come out of that Midwest region. You're going to be in Chicago. But Richmond, I mean, Richmond is sort of one of those teams that's getting hot at the right time. They had their struggles earlier this year. That's another senior laden team. They had guys that decided to come back, take advantage of that extra COVID year. But I feel like if Keegan Murray doesn't have a good game, or if Jordan Bohan doesn't have a good game, Richmond can play defense too, and they can definitely set the tone. So we'll see what happens in that match. That should be a fun one.
Yeah, and for my upsets from that region, I have Richmond over Iowa. I know Iowa played great toward the end of that tournament. They actually won it, but I kind of feel that Richmond doesn't get the credit they deserve. They beat Davidson by 2 yesterday. It wasn't a fluke. Those two teams went after it. I checked out some of that game yesterday. So people are sleeping on Richmond. Don't be surprised that they win that game. And also in that bracket, I think we talked about this in our preview show yesterday, Lakeena. I like Iowa State only because of that situation with LSU right now. I know LSU, just like everybody else, has a few days to prepare, but I think Iowa State is going to be ready for them. And I'm going with Miami over USC in that
Oh,
7-10 matchup.
okay, yeah, that should look. I said that's a toss up. So I think SC, if they can set the tone early and score, that's kind of the problem when they get into like bad starts. They can kind of they can kind of send a 4 shots. So we'll see if Miami can force them to do that. But I wouldn't be surprised if Miami beats SC. So
Mhm.
we'll do our Final Fours because we're up against it. We'll probably do our Final Fours later on in the show because we didn't do it yesterday. But there might be a couple. I know there's been some trendy Final Four picks. Iowa, like I said, is a trendy pick coming out of the Midwest. I know there were a couple other trendy picks as well. So we'll talk about it later on, but we got a lot to do. We'll do the Bulls NBA. Bulls have a really nice one tonight against Sacramento. Also,
Caruso's back. Yay!
Yeah. Oh, look. We'll tell you that. We'll see how much makes a difference. Okay, Lionel. Okay, you're an Iowa fan. Iowa. They better not take Richmond likely though. That's all we're saying. But yeah. So also too, we got the NFL non-tampering, legal tampering or whatever it was you want to call it. Started about an hour ago here. In our region, 11 a.m. Chicago time. The Bears got a nice pickup as well. We'll talk about that as well. So a lot to do still. Sid, Lakeena, Second City Sports of Chicago. We'll be right back.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago. NBA tomorrow night, the Bulls back home. They'll host the Cavaliers. It'll be a 7 o'clock tip-off at United Center. Chicago snapped a 5-game losing skid with a 114-108 win at Detroit on Wednesday. The Bulls are 4th in the Eastern Conference, 3.5 games out of first behind the Sixers, Bucks, and the Heat. The Cavaliers have won 2 straight. They're 6th in the East, 5 games out of first. NHL Thursday, the Blackhawks fell 4-3 at Boston. Brandon Hagel had a pair of goals for Chicago. Alex DeBrincat with a goal and an assist. Kevin Lankinen made 32 saves. The Blackhawks at Ottawa tomorrow night. The LA Chargers have agreed to acquire defensive end Khalil Mack from the Bears in exchange for a pair of draft picks. The Chargers are expected to send a second-round pick this year and a 2023 sixth-round selection to the Bears for the 3-time All-Pro defender. For lightning fast sports updates, download the Score app. It's free and one of the most popular sports apps in North America. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
Okay, I don't know who needs to hear this, but if you're not shopping spring essentials at Kohl's, you're missing out. I just got 20% off the cutest outfit from Sonoma Goods for Life, 25% off Hurley, which my son loves, and 25% off Champion and Adidas. Did I mention I also got an extra 15% off and earned Kohl's cash? Here's to longer days and more time to save. Select styles, 15% offer ends March 20th. Hurley, Champion, Adidas, coupons do not apply. Some exclusions apply. See store or Kohl's.com for details.
How do you make the most of your mow? Tony and Melissa do it on a John Deere Z530M Z-Track mower.
Jump out of the house, a cup of coffee, and I'm at work.
You're riding around, it's like going on a go-kart.
And for Rodney, he uses his John Deere X350 lawn tractor to turn his yard into
my happy place. It's a great place to do Tai Chi. I work on my mind, body, and well-being.
There are millions of ways to make the most of your mow. Learn how to make the most of yours at Deere.com. Nothing runs like a Deere.
Welcome back to Second City Sports Live and in living color on a Monday edition right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakeena here with you as we transition over now to talking about the Chicago Bulls in the NBA. Lakeena, let's start with the 41-26 Chicago Bulls. They're currently on the 2-game winning streak. They're on their way to Sacramento, where they'll take on the Kings tonight from the Golden One Center. That's at 9 o'clock local time on NBC Sports Chicago locally. If you happen to listen to us in Sacramento, you can watch that game on NBC Sports California or via NBA League Pass for those of you that have that service around the country. Lakeena, let's review the Bulls' last game this past Saturday as they take down the Cleveland Cavaliers 101-91. Of course, Zach LaVine set out the game with knee soreness. So we assume that he's going to play tonight, which opened the door for Alex Caruso, who returned to the lineup for Chicago in 29 minutes of action. He had 11 points, 4 assists in the rebound, including 1 or 2 from three-point range. You could tell that his energy was sorely missed throughout his time off due to that wrist injury. As we said at the beginning of the year, Lakeena, Alex Caruso makes a big difference coming off the bench for this team, especially from with his defense from the perimeter, which they have struggled with ever since he went out with that injury, as I mentioned, with Grayson Allen 2 months ago. So it was nice to see him back in the fold. Of course, DeMar DeRozan led the team with 25. He struggled shooting 9 of 26. Nikolai Vucevic had another double-double, 20 points and 14 rebounds. Ayo Dosunmu stepped up with 17 points, including 7-10 shooting and 3 or 4 from three-point range. And coming off the bench, Tristan Thompson had 6 rebounds and 5 points in 14 minutes of action. Lakeena, it was a tight ball game in the first half, but the Bulls blew it open early in that second half.
Yeah, it will, and I think they really need that because they were down most. Well, not down, but it kind of like was very close. But you could tell, once Caruso came back, I feel like this, his energy was missed. You could tell that the defense, it was missed there. So it was definitely one of those things where, well, you don't want to say in the NBA that one player can make a difference. Actually, and sometimes it can make a difference. And his defense, you can tell that early on that he was definitely right there. Going for loose balls and kind of giving Cleveland a little bit, forcing guys like the Evan Mobley and Darius Garland from Cleveland to take tough shots and such. So he was definitely, you can tell how missed he was in that front. So Caruso, he didn't points wise, he didn't score too much, but you know what though, he made contributions in other ways as well, and you can tell how much he was missed. Now he didn't have a lot of really.
Yeah, we'll talk about the impact of Alex Caruso, as we mentioned before. Coming off the bench, he had that energy, especially from the defensive side. He can give you some additional scoring as well. You could tell by his presence on the floor. He added value from an emotional standpoint, and you saw it gave the rest of the guys the confidence and the boost that they needed to be active defensively. You saw that especially in the second half with Ayo Dosunmu, DeMar DeRozan, and some of the other guys that came in that they really picked it up defensively. Cleveland had a tough time adjusting to the Bulls' defensive pressure, especially in that second half. The Bulls had more fast break opportunities. Once you turn turnovers into scoring opportunities that leads you to easy baskets, you're going to win a lot of games in the NBA. Now going to the flip side for Cleveland, Darius Garland, as I mentioned, who struggled for the Cavaliers. He had 25 points on 9 of 24 shooting, only 0 of 3 from three-point range. Dean Wade had 7 points off of 3 of 7 shooting. Kevin Love, the ageless veteran, he had 10 points at 34 minutes of action. He had 2 of 5 from three-point range to go along with 11 rebounds. And Evan Mobley, who should be the Rookie of the Year in the NBA, he has 17 points and 7 rebounds off of 8 of 17 shooting. Evan Mobley is going to be a force to be reckoned with in the NBA because he's a mobile big guy. He can not only operate in the paint, but he also has that outside touch, and he can get after it defensively. You saw that if you watched the game on Saturday. He got after it defensively, especially in that first half, and he was one of the few Cavalier players that had it going in terms of scoring and shooting from the outside early in the first half. Billy Donovan, you can give him the credit, especially making those halftime adjustments. The Bulls came out more aggressive defensively in that second half. Cleveland started missing shots. The Bulls got their chest into the Cleveland players. They got their hands on the balls, and that's all comes from Alex Caruso being aggressive on the perimeter defensively. You saw Io DeSumo having one of his best games in the last few weeks. You saw DeMar DeRozan turn up a little bit defensively. He started to be more aggressive going to the basket because the last few games he's been going to the basket and complaining to the refs that he hasn't been getting enough calls. He got a few calls on Saturday. Let's see that if he can keep it up, starting with tonight's game at Sacramento. Once again, that's at 9 o'clock Chicago time on NBC Sports Chicago locally. Now, with the Bulls, the couple of things to worry about here. We know that Zach LaVine is going to take a couple more games off because he has that knee issue. Hopefully, it doesn't affect him too much. That he's going to sit off any potential playoff games. I think that this is a smart idea for the Bulls to sit him out because he's one of their superstar players. I know he's up for a max contract this summer, but so far he's earned that max contract, in my opinion, because he was one of the few guys that were here to be one of the building blocks for the franchise. Now he has help via Alex Caruso, via DeMar DeRozan. His role is defined now. He doesn't have to be the guy anymore. With him and DeMar DeRozan on the floor together, both of them healthy, they are a dangerous bunch. We saw that especially early in the season. And assume that the Lonzo Ball gets back in the next couple of weeks or so, you're really going to see what this Bulls team is made of. And so I just want to we'll have a fair judgment of what this Bulls team is when Lonzo Ball gets back in a couple of weeks. Lakeena has rejoined us now.
Yeah, I guess they didn't like the fact that I was saying such. I said nice things about Cleveland. I mean, come on now. I'm thinking Cavs fans had a lot to do with that. But just to finish my point on the Bulls, I mean, look, Caruso had 11 points off the bench, but he almost not only did he do that, he had some big steals. He had like a couple of blocks. He had some, that shot, to DeRozan was probably heard around Twitterdom. But yeah, I mean, look, I think the Bulls, they should have no problem with the Kings tonight. After that, it gets a little tough for the Bulls. The next 4 or 5 games are a little tough. But now that the Caruso's back, we'll see if Zach's able to play tonight. But look, I feel like they have a good shot, perhaps make a nice little run. And look, a lot of the teams ahead of them are struggling a little bit. We'll get to that in a second. But I feel like the Bulls, this is kind of a chance for Bulls to kind of make a little bit of a move here.
Yeah, at tonight's games you mentioned, they're at Utah on Wednesday. I think they can win that game. I know Utah has revenge on their mind from early in the season when the Bulls beat them at the UC.
Right.
And that was on Tony Kukoc tonight. And they're at Phoenix on Friday. Of course, no Chris Paul, Devin Booker's back in the lineup, so that's still going to be tough. The Bulls have revenge on their minds because Phoenix beat them here in Chicago early last month, I believe. It was one of their first games after the All-Star break, so we're Bulls will have revenge on their mind from that. But Lakeena, here's the thing about the Bulls. As I said before, you hope that Caruso stays healthy, and you hope that they can develop some chemistry, especially when Lonzo Ball comes back, hopefully in a couple of weeks here, because the playoffs are around the corner. I believe it's exactly 1 month away now.
Just about,
yep. And so you don't have a lot of time. And I know people especially nationally, want to complain about this Bulls team is good, but they struggle against the teams that are ahead of them. I'm not saying that doesn't matter, but I'm not going to go overboard, okay? And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be worried about that, but you beat the teams that you're supposed to be. And at some point, and we'll find out come playoff time, wherever the Bulls are seated, it's imperative for them to have home court, whether they're the 1 seed, which they're probably not going to get. I think it's realistic they'll stay at 4, perhaps move up to number 3, but it's imperative for them to have home court because this is playoff basketball they're in right now. But once you get to the playoffs, you're going to play the same opponent over and over again. So it's really going to test your not just your physical health, but your mental health as well, and your basketball IQ. So you're really going to have to learn a lesson on how to beat some of these teams because they're not going to come in relaxed and just look past you. It's going to be hard for 48 minutes every night.
Well, I think if you're the Bulls, you want to avoid playing Brooklyn. I think that's sort of the key. We'll get to them in a second. But yeah, I think that's the key. If you could get to like that 2 or 3 spots, and perhaps maybe try to avoid playing, Brooklyn or something like that in the first round. I think no one wants to play Brooklyn at this point. So let's get to, what this is going to be like. Boston, I mean, Boston, can Jason Tatum kind of keep up what he's doing? They lost yesterday, but I feel like maybe, if they can avoid Brooklyn, I think that's the key if you're the Bulls. I think everyone else, I mean, Atlanta, they can maybe give you a little bit of a hard time. No, they beat in the last game. There were a couple of calls, but again, we won't get into that. Charlotte, I know Charlotte can be tough on some people as well. Toronto, I know they've given the Bulls some fits as well. So I think if you can avoid Brooklyn, I think you can definitely get past that first round. But again, it's going to be all about matchups. And look, we got about a month before the playoffs start. So, well, we'll see. I mean, look, I think if we can get Ball back, if they can get P. Will back as well to kind of get into a groove for maybe a couple of games at least, get maybe a week or two kind of like, as a team to be cohesive. That way they can kind of be at full strength when they play one of these teams. So we'll see.
Would you give Patrick Williams, I'm not going to say major minutes in the playoffs, but how many minutes would you play him, whoever they play in the first round? Would you give him 10 minutes, 15 minutes at least?
About 15.
Because, he hasn't played that much all season.
Yeah, I would say start him at 15 and then maybe work your way from there. Because remember, he hasn't played since the beginning of the season. So that's a good 3 or 4 months. So I think if, Billy Donovan is smart, I think that he'll play it smart and just say, okay, we could play, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And then if we get, further into the playoffs, we'll probably play a little bit more, but we'll see. I mean, I think you got to get him back into a groove as well, especially if is he going to be starting? Is he still going to be coming off the bench? So that's another thing that he has to figure out about Billy Donovan. So, but he's got, look, this is his first rodeo. I think the Bulls, they're only a half game out of that, second spot, with Philly and Milwaukee. They're tied, even though Philly's got the tiebreaker right now. So yeah, there's still going to be a lot of moving around.
You're listening to Second City Sports on a Monday edition. We're live and in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid and Lakeena are here with you talking Bulls and the NBA. You have a question or comment regarding the Chicago Bulls or the rest of the association, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comment section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. Lakeena, let's review some of the top games from the weekend. We'll start with Saturday slate. The Minnesota Timberwolves now 10 games over the 500 mark after beating the Miami Heat 113-104. The Miami Heat did not have Jimmy Butler, but as we tell you guys, don't overlook the Miami Heat. This is not smoke and mirrors. I know some people wanted to say that 2020 was their smoke and mirrors year, then reaching the finals when they were in the bubble. But this looks like this team is, when healthy, is much better than that 2020 team that lost to the Lakers in the finals.
Yeah, it's sort of one of those things where, I don't want to say it was a fluke, but remember, I think people also have to remember too, Jimmy Butler, like you said, took the game off, to rest. So that you could probably say that's probably why they beat him. I know our girl, Alana Tekire, who's probably the resident Heat fan that we know. Yeah. She, I'm not sure if she wasn't very happy with this loss, but look, I mean, Minnesota, all 5 of their stars were in double figures, so they had guys off the bench doing it as well. So it's one of those things where look, you just gotta click the tape and such. They're still the number 1 seed right now. Miami is, and look, Jalen Noel had 17 off the bench. So for the Timberwolves, I think that's a season high for him off the bench. So 16, I should say. So yeah, so it's definitely one of those things where look, I think Minnesota is showing folks that they're actually a pretty good now that they got the coach, they got the talent around them, and also with new ownership, we'll see if they invest more in the offseason. But like you said, I mean, Miami, despite Tyler Hero's 30 off the bench, it wasn't enough. And Max Struss, for all the Paul fans that remember him, he had 19 off the bench, didn't really have too much. Bam had 19. PJ Tucker struggled. So it just wasn't Miami's day yesterday. So look, Minnesota, look, you take the win, and you probably get closer and closer to firmly planting that play-in spot. But Miami, you just can just say, what, hey, it happens.
Speaking of one of the teams that are ahead of the Bulls in the Eastern Conference standings, that's the Milwaukee Bucks. And Saturday night was not their night. The Golden State Warriors defeated the defending champion Milwaukee Bucks 122-109. Steph Curry did not have a great game, but Klay Thompson did. 38.6 rebounds, 5 assists. Giannis Antetokounmpo from Milwaukee had 31 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists.
Yeah, Klay showed a little bit of the old Klay there in that game, and that Saturday night game. And I think it's sort of one of those things where you sort of say to yourself, okay, what could this be? Kind of like the time when, this maybe the Splash Brothers are trying to, showing their groove a little bit. But yeah, I mean, look, if you're Golden State, you'll take the win. Milwaukee, I think you're just trying to stay healthy and kind of get ready for the playoffs at this point. So, Golden State, I think you're seeing a little bit of the old Klay, like I said. And look, Steph, happy birthday to Steph. Today's his birthday today, number 35 for him. But Yeah, I mean, look, they feel like that's what happens. One guy, one of them struggles, the other steps up. Steph struggles, so Clay stepped up, and I'm sure it's gonna be like that. Throughout the rest of the season, going to the playoffs. So this was a nice win for the Warriors. So could this be a finals preview? We'll have to wait and see. But Golden State looked pretty good.
A couple of the games of note from Saturday night's action. The Denver Nuggets dropped one at home to the Toronto Raptors, 127-115. Former All-Star Pascal Siakam had 33 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists. Nikolai Jokic, who should be back in the MVP race, he's the defending MVP champion. He had 26 points, 10 rebounds, and 7 assists for the Denver Nuggets.
This was one of those games. This is one of those games where I think it was definitely defense that kind of sealed the deal for them. I think Toronto forced Denver to make bad shots, and Jokic had a couple of missed a couple of key shots as well to kind of keep them in it. They only scored Denver. I mean, only scored 16 in the fourth quarter. They outscored them by 18. Toronto did, so that's why they were able to. That's why they were able to win that game and propel them in that game. Look, I think Toronto could they be a dangerous team in the East? Sure. I mean, I think they finally have found sort of like their mojo here. Scotty Barnes had 25.
He's my second candidate for Rookie of the Year. I've been talking about him all year. That was a good steal for Toronto in the draft.
Definitely. And also, too, Chris Boucher had 21 off the bench as well for Toronto. So, yeah, I think that Toronto could be one of those teams where I wouldn't want to. I know I said Brooklyn, but I wouldn't want to play Toronto in the first round, especially if they keep this up.
And one last game of note from last Saturday's action, the Utah Jazz get back on track, defeating the lowly Sacramento Kings 134-125. De'Aaron Fox led Sacramento with 41 points. Jordan Clarkson had 45 points for the Utah Jazz.
Yeah, this is actually, I think, the third game this season that featured two 40-point scorers from the same team. Of course, Joel Embiid did it versus DeMar last month, also too a couple after B. Simmons and Trae Young. So we got this little duo there as well. I mean, look, I think De'Aaron Fox, if you're De'Aaron Fox, I'm thinking that maybe I would try to get a trade this summer because you don't know what Sacramento's doing. So I'm sure he's probably just putting on a show to see if maybe he can get somebody to maybe trade for him or whatnot, or maybe get released or get a buyout. So I think he's been one of the few bright spots on that Kings team. So we'll see.
Him and Buddy Hield.
Yeah, him and Hield as well. So Hield should have been traded, but that's another conversation for another episode. But so those two have kind of been sort of like holding down the fort for Sacramento. So I think if I were their agents, I'd probably be trying to see if I can trade this summer.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with Sacramento going forward. Now, going to yesterday's action, we'll start with the ABC doubleheader. It was the Nets holding off the New York Knicks by the score of 110-107. Kevin Durant with another big game. He had 53.6 rebounds, 9 assists. Evan Fournier for the Knicks had 25 points, 2 rebounds, and 5 assists. Kyrie Irving, because of the mandate in New York City, had to sit his ass on the sidelines.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with that because there have been some calls for Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City, to lessen the mandates. Now they did lessen the mandates, but apparently this is a Barclays Center decision. So if you want to, he said basically, look, talk to those folks. Don't talk to me. Look, I got rid of the mandates or limited the mandates. So if you want to talk to the people running the Barclays Center. But going by what Katie did, just by the numbers, that's scored the most points by a Nets player versus a Knicks team. Versus the Knicks in franchise history. Second player with multiple 50-point games in a season in Nets history. Third player with multiple 50-point games with 3 franchises in NBA history. Third most points by a Nets player in Nets NBA history. They've been around since the mid-70s. Fifth player with multiple 50-point games in a season at age 33. Plus, he's 34 now. That's basically it. So why did I think I covered all that stuff with Durant. And look, I think like this was a really nice win for Brooklyn. I think, like you said, I don't know if they'll be able to kind of sneak into top 6 so they can avoid the play-in. But if they stay in the play-in, they're probably the most dangerous play-in team, and you don't want to play them. So it'll be very interesting if they could, kind of keep it going. They got a pretty tough schedule too, but this was a nice back and forth game with one of your old rivals, the Knicks. The Knicks are trying to putting up a nice little effort, but over to pull it off there. So that was a really fun performance by Durant yesterday. Showing you that when healthy, he's one of the best in the league.
In that second game of that ABC Sunday doubleheader, it was the Dallas Mavericks defeating the Boston Celtics on the road 95-92. Good news if you're a Chicago Bulls fan. Luka Doncic had 26 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists for Dallas, while Al Horford for Boston had 17.6 rebounds and 2 assists.
Tatum only had 21, so he had a rough shooting night yesterday in that game. Luka was a little bit banged up, so he kind of went off the court a little bit. I think there was an ankle injury, but he able to come back. He came back and scored 25. But Dorian 50 Smith had 19 points, so kind of picking up the slack there. Also, too, Spencer Dinwiddie had 18 as well for the Mavs. I think the Mavs are starting to kind of get into their groove a little bit. Earlier this season, people were wondering about Jason Kidd and is he the right fit to coach this team? Looks like they're so far so good. And look, Boston had their struggles. Tatum struggled a little bit. From the field later on in the game, that I think he had a shot to win, to perhaps tie the game and force overtime, but that didn't come to fruition. So, that streak ends there in that front. But yeah, a really nice win for Dallas. Going into that late game on ESPN, 140 points scored by the Suns as they beat the Lakers 140-111, and 48 points. That's the most that the Lakers have given up in their franchise history. So, it's just LeBron, 31. Despite that, Carmelo Anthony had 18 off the bench, but that still wasn't nowhere near enough. And but the Suns are kind of, like I said, they're the first team, like we said last week, they're their first team to clinch a playoff spot. But they looked really good. With CP3, still out for a few more weeks, but they're doing what they can to kind of save that number 1 seed.
Yeah, we told you guys when Chris Paul went down after the All-Star break, he was going to miss 6 to 8 weeks. It's going to be challenging a little bit for the Suns, but it's not going to be as bad as people make it out to be. As we said before, the Phoenix Suns are winning the games they are supposed to win. It's going to be a battle between them and Golden State for those top 2 spots in the Western Conference. Assuming that Chris Paul comes back healthy for the playoffs, Phoenix, they may not get back to the finals, but they're not going to go away quietly. And I think they're a better team than they are a year ago. Obviously, of course, JaVale McGee helps with that, with his size, giving them the defensive presence coming off the bench. Devin Booker has taken his game into another level. You mentioned he scored 30 points against the Lakers last night. So Phoenix, don't overlook them. They're not the Miami Heat of 2020. So Phoenix is going to be a team to be reckoned with. For the Los Angeles Lakers, 9-22 on the road. That's all you need to know about that bunch. Now, the Philadelphia 76ers, just like our Chicago Bulls, had trouble with the Orlando Magic, but unlike the Bulls' last meeting against Orlando, Philadelphia came away with a 2-point victory in overtime, 116-114. Speaking of another former Chicago Bull, Wendell Carter Jr. had 23 points and 12 rebounds, while Joel Embiid, who's perhaps a leading candidate for some people, including yours truly, for MVP, he had 35 points, 16 rebounds, and 7 assists.
Yeah, that was a fun matchup. And look, Orlando always gives teams a tough time, so I was surprised that they forced overtime against Philly. But Joel Embiid had 35 to kind of pull that off as well. So this was a nice win for Philly to kind of keep pace with Miami for that number 1 seed. They really believe that they can sneak back in there and get that top seed. But it's going to be tough with only a few games left. But we'll see what happens. Real quick, though, going through these matchups from Monday through Thursday. Tonight, the Clippers and Cleveland at 6:00. That should be a fun one.
That's a back-to-back game for the Clippers. They barely won by 2 at Detroit yesterday.
So we'll see if they can have the energy. Portland and Atlanta. That should be an interesting one. The first
back-to-back for Atlanta too.
Yeah, so it'll be they won their game against the Pacers. Had to pull that one out. Unfortunately, they won by 3. Denver and Philadelphia. That's the first game of the ESPN doubleheader at 6:30. That should be a lot of fun. Charlotte and OKC. Weird thing about Memphis OKC, that Memphis OKC game from yesterday. Both teams were wearing their home jerseys, which I don't understand why they do that. But the game was delayed for like 10 minutes because Memphis had to put on their road jerseys since they were the road team. Memphis ended up winning that game, but that was just strange. That whole beginning. Of that
Didn't it happen about
really
a year ago?
Yeah, against Atlanta, I believe OKC did. So someone needs to call some OKC, whoever the PR person is, they need to call somebody because to kind of make those schedules. But I digress. But first a back-to-back game for them as well. They play Charlotte Minnesota and San Antonio. Also, too, congrats to Greg Popovich for who now is winningest coach in NBA history. He has more than I think about 5 or 6 different current franchises. That's how weird that is. But you know how he feels about that. He's the one, I don't want to celebrate. That's exactly what happened. He said, okay, we had the pomp and circumstance. Okay, let's go. Okay, I'll go with the locker room. So it was just silly. Passing Don Nelson for that honor. So congrats to him. And Washington and Golden State at 9:00 in the late game.
Yeah, that's another back-to-back for. Is it a back-to-back for Golden State? No, it's not a back-to-back for Golden State. They played on Saturday. Yeah. Rounding out tonight's schedule, you have the Bulls and the Kings, as we mentioned, 9:00. The Bulls are 3.5-point favorites. The Bucks and the Jazz will complete that special Monday night doubleheader on ESPN. That's at 9:00. And, of course, the Toronto Raptors will play the Los Angeles Lakers at 9:30. So that's the schedule for tonight, Monday in the NBA. Now let's go to Tuesday's slate. Memphis at Indianapolis to take on the Pacers at 6:00. The Brooklyn Nets will go down to Orlando to take on the Magic. Can the Magic pull off 2 wins in a row against playoff teams? We'll see. At 6:30, we have Detroit at Miami. Let's see if Jimmy Butler returns for that game. And the NBA TV game of the night for Tuesday, Phoenix at New Orleans at 7:00. That's your schedule for Tuesday.
Hump Day, Wednesday, you got Atlanta and Charlotte at 6:00. That should be a fun one, a battle of young teams. Speaking of a good one here, you got Philadelphia and Cleveland. Could this be a playoff matchup? We'll see. That's at 6:00. Denver and Washington, that's at 6:00. Dallas and Brooklyn, the first game, that's Wednesday doubleheader on ESPN. That's 6:30. That should be a good one. Portland and the Knicks, also at 6:30. Phoenix begins their road trip, their road trip at Houston. That's at 7:00. And the Lakers go up against Minnesota. Minnesota, hoping, I think this would be the season sweep for the Lakers, I believe. So, or I think they won. They were 3 of the last, 3 of the first, 2 of the first 3 meetings. So this should be an interesting one there. And for Minnesota at 7.
And wrapping up the Wednesday schedule, the Bulls will take on the Jazz at 8:00. Followed by the second game of the ESPN Wednesday night doubleheader will be the Boston Celtics at the Golden State Warriors at 9:00. Yeah, the Bucks and the Kings also at 9:00, and at 9:30 the Raptors at the Clippers. That's your schedule for Wednesday. And the lone game for Thursday, which is the real opening day for March Madness in college basketball. We have one game on the schedule for the NBA, and that's on NBA TV at 6:00. The Detroit Pistons at the Orlando Magic. Whoever watches that one.
I believe that's a makeup game, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that's a makeup. I'm not sure, but
it doesn't say on here.
Yeah, maybe it is, or maybe that's just unfortunately, no one's going to be paying attention to that because people are going to be watching March Madness. But look, that's your schedule for the NBA for this week.
All right, hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 straight ahead as you're listening to Second City Sports, live in living color in Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena. Coming up, a former Chicago Bear has a new job at a new place. ESPN's Monday Night Football announcing team is now taking shape, and we'll have a whole lot more. And plus, moves are being made in the world of baseball. All that coming up in the second hour of Second City Sports. You're listening to Sports Zone Chicago.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago. NBA tomorrow night, the Bulls back home. They'll host the Cavaliers. It'll be a 7:00 tip-off at United Center. Chicago snapped a 5-game losing skid with a 114-108 win at Detroit on Wednesday. The Bulls are 4th in the Eastern Conference, 3.5 games out of first behind the Sixers, Bucks, and the Heat. The Cavaliers have won 2 straight. They're 6th in the East, 5 games out of first. NHL Thursday, the Blackhawks fell 4-3 at Boston. Brandon Hagel had a pair of goals for Chicago. Alex DeBrincat with a goal and an assist. Kevin Lankinen made 32 saves. The Blackhawks at Ottawa tomorrow night. The LA Chargers have agreed to acquire defensive end Khalil Mack from the Bears in exchange for a pair of draft picks. The Chargers are expected to send a second-round pick this year and a 2023 sixth-round selection to the Bears for the 3-time All-Pro defender. For lightning fast sports updates, download the Score app. It's free and one of the most popular sports apps in North America. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
Okay, I don't know who needs to hear this, but if you're not shopping spring essentials at Kohl's, you're missing out. I just got 20% off the cutest outfit from Sonoma Goods for Life, 25% off Hurley, which my son loves, and 25% off Champion and Adidas. Did I mention I also got an extra 15% off and earned Kohl's Cash? Here's to longer days and more time to save. Select styles, 15% offer ends March 20th. Hurley, Champion, Adidas, coupons do not apply. Some exclusions apply. See store or Colts.com for details.
How do you make the most of your mow? Tony and Melissa do it on a John Deere Z530M Z-Track mower.
Jump out of the house, a cup of coffee, and I'm at work.
You're riding around, it's like going on a go-kart.
And for Rodney, he uses his John Deere X350 lawn tractor to turn his yard into
My happy place. It's a great place to do Tai Chi. I work on my mind, body, and well-being.
There are millions of ways to make the most of your mow. Learn how to make the most of yours at Deere.com. Nothing runs like a Deere.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports, the Monday edition. We're live in living color. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena. You're listening to Sports Zone Chicago. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
Follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan McGee on the IG.
You have a question or comment for us during our 60-minute extravaganza, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comment section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. Lakeena, let's kick off hour number 2 of this fabulous program by going to the NFL. Yes, the world of football. Lakeena, it never seems to amaze me that the NFL is a 12-month sport. And with free agency on the horizon, the new league calendar year starting on Wednesday in preparation for the 2022 season, Tom Brady upstaged the announcements of the NCAA Tournament brackets, announcing on his Twitter page that he's going to come back for his third year with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The future Hall of Fame quarterback said that he was sick of staying at home for the last 2 months. He has 1 year left on that contract with Tampa Bay. He's going to give it another shot next year. It makes head coach Bruce Arians happy, and I know it's going to make Chris Godwin, who just got the franchise tag from the Buccaneers, happy as well.
I think he probably saw the in that division and also in the NFC, like, I can win this. So he probably came back in. But also, too, like you said, I mean, he probably was kind of bored at home. So maybe that's another reason why he decided, you know what, I'm going to give it one more shot. You know, people called this. So, I'm not that surprised. Of course, he couldn't have waited till today to perhaps do that. He had to upstage the, the selection stuff. But, it is what it is. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. There's also Ryan Jensen, who's one of their O-line guys. He's back. He came back as well with a 3-year deal. So he'll have his O-line guy there. Now, what does this mean for guys like Gronk and Leonard Fournette and those guys? Will they come back? I mean, I don't know what they're pretty good with the cap, so we'll see what happens. But it'll be interesting what they do here. But yeah, of course, they did lose a couple of guys. Alex Kappa, is intended to sign a 4-year, $40 million deal with the Bengals to help Joe Burrow. So it looks like the Bengals are investing in some O-line guys. They signed another O-lineman as well. So I got to look that up in a little bit because these signings are coming out fast and furious, folks. Chase Edmonds got a 2-year deal leaving the Cardinals. Now he's going to be going with the Dolphins. The Browns have released Jarvis Landry, so he'll going to be some suitors for him. AJ Boye was released by the Panthers. James Conner, we got a new 3-year deal with the Cardinals too. Seahawks, Quadre Diggs, he gets a nice little 3-year extension, worth $40 million. We'll see what happens because it looks like they're going to be rebuilding. The Bears made some news too. Larry Ogunjobi from the Bengals, who's a solid D tackle, who's a solid pass rusher. He's been signed by the Bears. That's a nice signing. I mean, I know that some Bears fans are kind of like, you know what, maybe they should go with the old lineman, but this is a nice little start to replace Khalil Mack at a kind of a much cheaper price. So we'll see what happens there. Zadarius Smith's been released by the Packers, but the Ravens are the favorite. This is according to Tom Pelissero from the NFL Network. Bengals also signed Ted Karras, a veteran lineman, to a 3-year deal, helping out Joe Burrow. Also to Lakeon Tomlinson, who was actually part of that trade with Diggs, a few years back. If you guys remember, he was with the 49ers last couple of years. Now he's going to the Jets.
Yeah, first on Tom Brady, as you mentioned before, he looked at the NFC, especially with Russell Wilson being traded to Denver and Aaron Rodgers re-signing with the Packers. I'm sure he said to himself, "Yeah, I think I could get one more crack at it." And as we mentioned before, with the Packers having salary cap issues, their numbers is starting to come down now. As you mentioned, so Darius Smith is being released today. Uh, in that, first of all, let's start out with the NFC South. Atlanta is mediocre at best. I know they had a 7-10 record last year. Calvin Ridley he's suspended for the upcoming season due to gambling on his own gambling in the NFL. That's not smart. New Orleans is looking for a quarterback. They're in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes according to reports. Carolina's in it as well. Another team in there, NFC South. If you're Tom Brady, I say, yeah, I can win the division again, but I want to win another Super Bowl before I call it a career. The NFC is wide open now. Will Green Bay be good? We'll see what they do with the rest of the team because, like I said before, they still have to cut some more guys, and the team's going to look very different because Aaron Rodgers is coming back. You have to restructure his contract, but he's not. He does not come with a cheap price tag. And so that's what Green Bay has to deal with. But the NFC is wide open right now. If you're Brady, it's like, yeah, if I can get that defense that can perform like they did a couple years ago when we won the whole thing, real good, and I can get some better running game. Chris Godwin's back. If I stay healthy, that offensive line plays their role, we could possibly win it again.
Yeah, that'll be interesting too. I think that's probably one of the reasons why he came back. I think he probably, like you say, he probably saw that roster is like, the defense is an attack. They'll probably have to move some pieces around with their
Mm-hmm.
old line guys because a couple guys have left, but they can still, still have a shot. That NFC South still pretty winnable. So we'll see what happens. It should be interesting
Mm-hmm.
there as well. Also, too, another former Bears made the news. Mitch Trubisky has signed a deal with the Steelers, and Mike Garofalo, to his credit, with the NFL Network, he said, you know what, he called it 3 days ago that, look out for the Steelers with Trubisky. And look, it's right there for the taking. They're looking for a new quarterback now with Big Ben retired. So he has a shot. And again, we'll see if that offense, kind of, peruse very well with his style. But, I know that, Trubisky's kind of like been a cult figure here in Chicago, but,
Mm-hmm.
we'll see if this is the right fit for him.
Yeah, I could, like I said, I have nothing personal against Trubisky. It just didn't work out here. A lot of it due to now ex-head coach Matt Nagy, and we won't go any much further with that. But Trubisky looks like he's going to have some decent weapons around him. Of course, Najee Harris had a good year running the ball for the Steelers last year. You still had Chase Claypool, and you have James Washington as your wide receivers. Now, Juju Smith-Schuster, who's been one of the top 10 wide receivers in the game over the last few years of the first few years of his career. He's a free agent. If you're Pittsburgh, do you try to bring him back, or dare I say it, is he a good fit for Chicago, even though they're rebuilding and Justin Fields needs weapons around him? If you're the Bears, do you go after Juju Smith-Schuster?
Well, there are rumors about that, right? That perhaps maybe the Bears might be in on Smith Schuster. But if you're Smith Schuster, I mean, do you try to maybe perhaps go to a contender instead? Because the Bears are unfortunately not in that position yet. So if you're like, I think he's been around. He's really been around forever. He's only like 24, so I know that he's been around
Mhm.
forever. It seems. But if you're going into your peak as a wide receiver. Do you want to perhaps maybe try to go to the contender if there's money available? So again, I'm sure the Bears will try to go for him, but again, you just don't know. And but also too, the Bears are not in win now mode. If you're Smith
Mhm.
Schuster, you want to go someplace where yes, you can get some money, but you want to go to a team that's also in win now mode.
Yeah, if you like you say, if you Juju Smith-Schuster, your perfect situation was to get paid and go to a team that's in the win now mode. You tasted the playoffs before earlier in your career. Of course, Big Ben, who's now retired, had a big part to do with that, playing on those Steelers teams. Sometimes you get both, sometimes you don't. But we'll see what Juju Smith-Schuster does. He deserves a big payday, but will he get it from the team that wants him more? So, and that's the price you pay in free agency.
Yeah, it should be a fun one. I'm sure he's going to be. I'm sure the Bears. I've also heard the Cardinals. I've also seen there are a couple other AFC teams that might be vying for his services. So he'll definitely have his choices of teams to go with. But we'll see. We'll see what direction he goes. goes with here. Jarvis Landry is another name that's being floated around, perhaps maybe for the Bears. I've seen some Bears fans say that, maybe how about, let's try and, probably get Jarvis Landry. But again, you're going with a guy who's like 28 now, and you're going past your peak in a wide receiver. So, 5-time Pro Bowler. What's a good fit for him?
Well, I was gonna say if you get him on the Rams, but I don't know if the Rams really need him. I know Odell Beckham Jr. is a free agent. I know he's gonna miss at least the first half of next year due to the injury he suffered in the Super Bowl. But could the Patriots be in play for Jarvis Landry? They need some playmakers to go with now. Second-year quarterback Mac Jones out of Alabama. Hate to say it, the Dallas Cowboys be in play. I know Amari Cooper was traded to Cleveland, so. Could that be in play? I don't know. Could Washington be in play? They need another wide receiver. You have Terry McLaurin, who was injured in and out of the lineup last year, but when he's healthy, he's one of the top 15, 20 wide receivers in the game. And so could Washington be in play? Now you have Carson Wentz there.
Yeah, that's another. There's definitely going to be some teams there as well. Maybe Baltimore. You go inside the division and perhaps maybe go with Baltimore. So, that's another team that might be, could be vying for a service. They got some money left over in the cap, so that should be interesting. Zadarius Smith has been released. We told you guys about that. It's more of a cap thing. So, like we told you, Baltimore is one team that's being floated around. See a couple other names being floated around as well. Some people even said perhaps bringing coming in for the Bears. I don't, but that might be a fit to go. They're switching defense, so that could fit better for him. So, what do you think about Zadarius Smith?
I know some people, including our guy Sean Sierra and Sean and Maya in the morning, right here on Sports Zone Chicago, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 9 to noon Central Standard Time. He would say that the Bears should kick the tires on him. If the Bears were in win now mode, I would say yes, but I don't think the Bears are going to go after him. I can see a team for, as you mentioned, for Zadarius Smith services, maybe Baltimore. I would say Dallas, but they still got to get under the cap, so I think Dallas is out. Could it be the Rams? They're always sniffing around. They know how to manipulate the salary cap.
Yes, they do.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams
knows how to do that.
Exactly.
He's
and also too, I think this team has some cap room, especially after that Russell Wilson trade. That's the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, that would be a nice little pickup.
That's a good young defense, and they can use his services.
Yeah, they'll say you brush up that defense. That defense is actually pretty good. Youth wise. So that could be a nice little fit. He's only 26, so that could be a nice fit for him as well. So so there are a lot of guys that can definitely. There are a lot of teams, like I said, definitely fit. With Zadarius Smith, for his services as well. So the teams are there. So we'll just have to wait and see if he picks which one he picks.
Yeah, it should be interesting as the free agency opens up around the National Football League. You're listening to Second City Sports, live in the 11 color for a Monday edition right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid, Lakeena here with you. Lakeena, let's transition over to baseball. Free agency has kicked off since the CBA was the lockout was lifted last week, and the CBA, I believe, it's officially been ratified now. Of course, both our local teams, the Cubs and the White Sox, are in camp. Spring training games start later this week, and when we come back for our next episode on Friday, I think the first games would be are about to start.
Right.
I said they will be starting by the time we hit the air on Friday. But the White Sox made a couple of big moves over the weekend. They picked up reliever Joe Kelly from the LA Dodgers, a 2-year deal with the option for a third in 2024. And also they picked up Josh Harrison, the second baseman, but the former Pittsburgh Pirate in the Oakland A for 1 year. And they picked up another pitcher as well. I like the moves that Rick Hahn has made for the White Sox. Joe Kelly is key. Unfortunately, my guy Ryan Tepera, who was part of that Craig Kimbrell trade from the Cubs and Nick Magical deal at the trade deadline last year, he's not coming back, unfortunately. Nope. But the White Sox bullpen, even at this time last year, it looks a whole lot better on paper than it did a year ago.
Yeah, you definitely upgraded with Joe Kelly now. Unfortunately, Kelly will miss the first couple of weeks because of a forearm strain, so he's going to be sitting for a little bit. But this is a nice pickup for the White Sox. I mean, look, that middle relief, they still got to address that. And get ready for those, the pouting, Joe Kelly gifts, for that to be, be a year. especially when they play the Astros too. I gotta look and see when they first play the Astros because he and the Astros are very good friends. Not very good, for reasons that you guys probably know by now. Google it if you don't. But yeah, look, it's a nice pickup by him by the White Sox. Josh Harrison, a great veteran utility guy. Can play infield, can play outfield. He can play outfield on those days where Eloy shouldn't be. That's a whole nother. I'm gonna be longing for that all season long, folks. This is gonna be a theme here. So get ready for that.
You want him to go in that net again, like he did a couple of years ago?
Yeah, no, I don't. He might hurt himself even worse if he does. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, this is a good pickup there for the White Sox. I feel like. Look, Rick Hahn knows how to do this. Let's not, no one, should rag on him for any moves that he makes. I think it looks pretty good. You still need a middle reliever, so we'll see if they can get that. And maybe get another extra guy to replace Madrigal. But Harrison is that guy because he can play both infield and outfield. But maybe get another guy there. So look, these MLB moves are gonna be coming in fast and furious. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Now, if you're a Cubs fan, Carlos Correa, I don't know. I mean, look, you got Andrelton Simmons, which is a solid, guy at a kind of a bargain price. Can play, sort of similar. He's a little bit older. He's about like 33 or something like that. Wasn't very good the last couple of years, because of COVID and such. But that's a nice pickup. I mean, could they still be in on Correa? Now there's rumors that Correa might just sign a 1-year deal with the Astros, or it's just who knows at this point. I mean, let's just pick somebody. Freddie Freeman is also a name. I know the Yankees. We'll talk about that trade they made in a second, but it looks like the Yankees are out on him. The Dodgers are still, trying to go at him. I think Atlanta, although they may not have the money, that's another issue. So,
just breaking news on the Atlanta Braves. According to ESPN, the Braves and the Athletics, Oakland are in agreement on a deal that will send All-Star first baseman Matt Olson to Atlanta, according to Jeff Passan.
Okay, so that's another nice little pickup for Atlanta. So, but I think
so I assume that Freddie Freeman is not going to come back to the ball club.
If that's the
case, that's what it reads to me. I could be wrong, but that's what it reads like to me.
That's what it sounds like, because he kind of plays a very similar position as Freeman. So I'm thinking, does that mean that they're out on Freddie Freeman, the Braves, because of that trade? Maybe, Matt Olson is a really solid young player for Oakland. I'm thinking Oakland, they're getting a lot of, minor league guys back. So this is probably like to kind of, try to restock that farm system. So yeah, with Olson coming, I think maybe they're out on Freddie Freeman. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, we will have to wait and see. Also, too, injury news as camps spring training camps are underway around baseball. Fernando Tatis Jr., who's one of the best young players in baseball for the San Diego Padres, he had his injury issues last year. He's going to start the year 2022 on the injured list. He's going to be shelved for the next 3 or 4 months with a wrist surgery. And the San Diego Padres, I forgot who their new manager is now, but they had a playoff spot well in reach last year. They blew it with a bad second half. And we all know about the issues that those players had in that clubhouse, so which led to a managerial change.
Bochy is back at the with the Padres. So this is probably not the news he wanted to hear. So Bob Melvin, I should say, but I don't think this is a news he wanted to hear coming back into the managing fold.
Yeah, they compete.
Bob Melvin, you're not happy.
Yeah, they competed with the Dodgers, especially early last season, but they ran out of gas when they played the Dodgers again. Of course, they were the third team that was left out of the playoff spot. Of course, San Francisco had a magical year winning that division. Of course, the Dodgers took the wild card from that division. Now, Fernando Tatis Jr. since 2020 with MLB rank his minimum of 500 at bats. Check out these numbers. In home runs, 59. That's tied for first. Slugging percentage, 598, that's first. OPS 163, fourth. Hard hit percentage 57.8, first. WAR, his WAR number 9.4, that's second in the major leagues. All best among shortstops during that span in Major League Baseball. So San Diego's going to miss a lot.
And up to 3 months. That's not counting rehab. So he might miss like half the season. Sort of like condensed season or not. This isn't good if you're the Padres. If you're a Padres, you're hoping to challenge the Dodgers and the Giants for the NL West. I mean, this takes
Mm-hmm.
a really big step back. So I don't know. I mean, it's unfortunate that this has been a problem the last few years with Tatis Jr. that he hasn't been able to stay healthy, but good. Oh gosh, you feel for them and you feel for the Padres as well, because I'm sure they were hoping that maybe they could finally challenge, really challenge for the NL West, but this
Mm-hmm.
isn't that. That's not going to happen, at least not right now. But again, that could change when he does come back, but that may not be till July or after the All-Star break.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. Nelson Cruz, this will make your White Sox fans happy. He is signing with the Nationals, so you won't see him too much. You may see him like maybe once, but that's about it. 15
Yeah.
million there. That deal was made last night, and also too a big trade between the Twins and the Yankees. The Yankees get Josh Donaldson and Isaiah Kiner-Falefa from Minnesota. They said that they don't send Gary Sanchez, but they do get they're going to the Gary Sanchez, Gio Urshela. They're going to Minnesota. So I don't know what the Twins are doing, but who knows? But so what do you think about that trade, Sid?
I think the Minnesota Twins are rebuilding. I know they're trying to be competitive, but I don't know if that's going to be enough this year. Like I said, we'll do our baseball preview once we get closer to April 7th, opening day. But the Yankees is mostly addition by subtraction. Gio Urshela, he was one of the young guys. He just didn't pan out. Gary Sanchez, he was supposed to be one of the big name stars from the catcher position, but he's been hurt over the last few years. He underperformed, so I think many Yankees fans are happy to see him go. Now, Josh Donaldson, of course, he had that beef with Lucas Giolito last year of the White Sox, and he decided to pick on Nazi again, the White Sox TV analyst for NBC Sports Chicago. Now, Josh Donaldson's in the bright lights with the New York Yankees. I don't know if he's going to talk smack about the Red Sox or the Tampa Bay Rays, but I think this is a decent addition for the Yankees. We'll see what the Yankees get out of him.
Yeah, that'll be interesting there, and as well. And I'm sure Yankees fans are happy to be rid of Gary Sanchez. So
yeah,
we'll see. I mean, look, we'll see how Josh Donaldson performs under the bright lights. So we'll see what happens there. Toronto got some starting pitching, which they desperately needed. Kikuchi, that's a nice little pickup for them. Carlos Rodon is going to the Giants. How you feel about that, Sid? A 2-year, $44 million.
I know he rejected the team's qualifying offer. I believe it was $18 million. So he tested the free agent market. And as we said before, Lakeena wasn't surprised if he was going to leave. Yeah, good luck to him in San Francisco. I know we're coming up next month on the 1-year anniversary of that no-hitter against the now formerly known as the Cleveland Indians team. But I think it's going to do well for San Francisco. I know that's a pitcher's ballpark out there. I forgot what the name of that stadium is now, since everybody wants to change their names to the original ballparks, but he's going to do well for San Francisco. We all know that how hard he worked just to get back on the field. He had injury issues a couple years ago. He finally started to get it together last year. He had a good year. And so I think he's going to help out San Francisco. It's $22 million a year for 2 years, and he deserved it, so good luck to him.
Yeah, he definitely deserves it, and we'll see how he does in San Francisco. Phillies agreed to a 1-year deal with lefty reliever Brad Hand. So that was a big issue for them last year, was the bullpen. So
we told you. That's why they lost that division to Atlanta.
Yeah, so that's getting a nice veteran guy that can eat up innings and middle relief. That was a huge get for them and a much needed get for them. So we'll see what happens there. Trying to see there are a couple, because these are coming. Look, like NFL, MLB, these signings are coming fast and furious, folks. So we're telling you as quick as we can get them. And going back to the NFL, Zach Ertz got a nice 3-year extension to stay with Phoenix, with the Cardinals, I should say, with Arizona. So that's a nice little win for them. And look, I think the Cardinals, they'll take care of Kyler Murray in time, but they got other guys. They re-signed Connor, they re-signed Ertz, so nice pickup for them.
Yeah, it's a nice pickup for Arizona with Kyler Murray, of course, and now he's putting his stuff back up on social media. He loves the Cardinals again, so he has a nice target with Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz made a difference with the Cardinals offensively last year to being traded for Philadelphia. It gave Murray another weapon, so it was a good signing by by Arizona. Now, I know we have a couple minutes left before we have to break for the bottom of the hour, but I want to go back to the White Sox, Lakeena. I know they got their second baseman in Josh Harrison, which was a very good pickup by GM Rick Hahn. But just in case you don't get Michael Conforto in right field or you don't trade for a right fielder with Craig Kimbrough, would you go with the combination of Gavin Sheets and Adam Engel as your right fielders? I would.
Yeah, I would. I think, look, you got the depth right there now, thankfully. So I would say, yeah, go switching around, switch around. So you got maybe in the infield. Like I said before, he also plays outfield. I really want him to play outfield whenever I'm gonna keep saying it too until I'm blue in the face until Eloy, with Eloy. I don't want him hitting any nets like he did last year.
He's still gonna be a starting left fielder, Lakeena. I know. You're more annoyed than I am, but
but hopefully we won't see too much of that. So you got Harrison, you got some other guys that can play. That's very versatile too. So I'll live with it. But you know what? I think I'm just glad they got more depth in the infield because I think that's another thing that was really needed. That they really it showed last year in that series against the Astros.
And also, too, the White Sox need a backup catcher. It looks like Zach Collins. The Sox gave him a few opportunities. He just hasn't panned out. He was a first-round pick for a few years ago. I know Yasmani Grandal is coming off a couple of injuries. It showed, especially in that playoff series against Houston, where Houston was constantly stealing on the White Sox, and the White Sox couldn't do anything about it. So the White Sox need a backup catcher, seriously. So we'll see who they pick up in the free agent market.
Yeah, that should be. Yeah, there's still guys. I know there are guys that are still that are in spring training right now as we speak, but there's still a lot of dealings and signings coming up. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, so we got to take one more break. Still a lot to talk about. Still, and we'll break down any more crazy news, trades, all that stuff. If Freddie Freeman signed somewhere or Carlos Correa signed somewhere. Also, too, big news in the media front. Looks like the Monday Night Football crew for ESPN, they finally have a solid lineup. So we'll talk about that. Sydney Brown, Lakeena McGee, Second City Sports on Chicago. We'll see you in a couple minutes.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago. And be it tomorrow night, the Bulls back home. They'll host the Cavaliers. It'll be a 7 o'clock tip-off at United Center. Chicago snapped a 5-game losing skid with a 114-108 win at Detroit on Wednesday. The Bulls are 4th in the Eastern Conference, 3.5 games out of first behind the Sixers, Bucks, and the Heat. The Cavaliers have won 2 straight. They're 6th in the East, 5 games out of first. NHL Thursday, the Blackhawks fell 4-3 at Boston. Brandon Hagel had a pair of goals for Chicago. Alex DeBrincat with a goal and an assist. Kevin Lankinen made 32 saves. The Blackhawks at Ottawa tomorrow night. The LA Chargers have agreed to acquire defensive end Khalil Mack from the Bears in exchange for a pair of draft picks. The Chargers are expected to send a second-round pick this year and a 2023 sixth-round selection to the Bears for the 3-time All-Pro defender. For lightning fast sports updates, download the Score app. It's free and one of the most popular sports apps in North America. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
Okay, I don't know who needs to hear this, but if you're not shopping spring essentials at Kohl's, you're missing out. I just got 20% off the cutest outfit from Sonoma Goods for Life, 25% off Hurley, which my son loves, and 25% off Champion and Adidas. Did I mention I also got an extra 15% off and earned Kohl's cash? Here's to longer days and more time to save. Select styles, 15% offer ends March 20th. Hurley, Champion, Adidas, coupons do not apply. Some exclusions apply. See store or Kohl's.com for details.
How do you make the most of your mow? Tony and Melissa do it on a John Deere Z530M Z-Track mower.
Jump out of the house, a cup of coffee, and I'm at work.
You're riding around, it's like going on a go-kart.
And for Rodney, he uses his John Deere X350 lawn tractor to turn his yard into
my happy place. It's a great place to do Tai Chi. I work on my mind, body, and well-being.
There are millions of ways to make the most of your mow. Learn how to make the most of yours at Deere.com. Nothing runs like a deer.
Welcome back to Second City Sports, the live Monday edition, live in 11 color, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakeena here with you. Last segment of the show for today. Lakeena, we got less than a half hour left for this segment. If you have a question or comment for us, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions and comments in the comment section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. Lakeena, you wanted to lead off this segment by discussing the Monday Night Football booth for ESPN. Looks like it's finally going to be complete.
Although it doesn't official yet, but looks like Joe Buck, in a trade with I guess ESPN, they have decided to leave. He's decided to leave Fox a year early to go to ESPN and rejoin with his buddy Troy Aikman. And again, this isn't official yet, but all signs, according to Andrew Marchand from New York Post, saying that that this like they're going to be reuniting. And this looks like this could be something that's really special. And we talked about this the last few weeks. ESPN has had a really they've had like kind of like a log jam of guys that going back and forth. Some did not come to fruition, and matches haven't been very good. Now that you have a solid lineup that's a proven lineup, Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, now you have that you might be able to specialize and have those great games that ESPN has been vying for with a new TV deal excited to kick in next year.
And also, too, remember ABC is part of that Super Bowl rotation as well. So, ESPN had to solidify their lineup as far as the announcing team is concerned. Now, this is going to have a domino effect with CBS and Fox for sure. Now, Al Michaels, is he still head over to Amazon to do the Thursday night package with Kirk Herbstreit? We shall see who's going to be the number one team at Fox. Will it be Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olsen both moving up to the number one slot? If that's the case, who's gonna vie for that number two spot? Will it be Kenny Albert and Jonathan Vilma? Will it be Darren Moose Johnson, who I believe should move back up to that number two spot? We'll see.
Yeah, also too, Joe Davis. Yeah, that's another rumor too. He's a great young broadcaster from right here in Chicago.
He does the Dodgers games during the regular season.
Too, so that'll be interesting as well if they use him as well. But you got to get Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olsen since they're already there. They have a nice rapport. The number two team. You would think that they could just promote from within and just make them the number one team. Because remember too, Fox is going to have two of the next three Super Bowls. They have the one coming up this coming season, also two next year too, as part of that new TV deal. So this is gonna be very interesting though to see what they do, because they got some depth there as well. And ESPN, it looks like they finally have their tandem now. So it is a proven one too. So. And remember, too, like you said, 2025 is going to be when ESPN and ABC have the Super Bowl. Also, too, some of the Monday night games will be on ABC and ESPN as well. So that'll be interesting to see. Now that you got a really solid tandem. And again, should be fun how Fox decided to do this, because I'm sure they weren't expecting it. I think one of the things is as part of that deal, I believe what they're saying is that I think like one of the Big Ten games, because they both share Big Ten TV rights, to share maybe a selection on maybe a certain game. So we'll see. We'll find out in the fall which game does Fox trade, the ABC trade, with Fox for.
Assuming that Burkhardt and Greg Olsen move up to that number one slot for Fox next season, do you still grab an outside the company TV voice to fill that number two or perhaps number three slot for the NFL at Fox? Or is Sean Payton, the former head coach of the New Orleans Saints, is he still at play?
Yeah, that's interesting, because like we've been saying, the only thing with Sean Payton is that will in a couple of years will he kind of get that juice back, and if he has a nice opportunity, does he go back to coaching? So especially with two of the next 3 years, we know Greg Olsen is retired for good, so that's not going to be an issue. But I don't know. I mean, like you said, it's going to be interesting to see what happens here, because I feel like this is going to be one of those things where you wonder, okay, do you go within? Do you try to maybe get an outside, guy? Do you get maybe a Sean Payton to come in? It's going to get this is when it gets really, really interesting.
Yeah, we should see what happens with the NFL broadcasting teams coming up in the weeks and perhaps months ahead. You're listening to Second City Sports right here on Sports Zone Chicago. We're live in the 11 colors. Sid, Lakeena are here with you. Still continuing on the sports media news front. Peacock, the NBC Sports NBC streaming service. Peacock's package of MLB games will reportedly air on Sunday mornings and afternoons. It will be exclusive, according to our good friends at Awful Announcing. Peacock's games will be taking place in a weird window, and is by Joe Lucia from awfulannouncing.com. It turns out that MLB's streaming deal with Peacock isn't for the midweek non-exclusive games dumped by ESPN in their new TV deal with MLB. No, it's not for a brand new package of Sunday games with start times as early as 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. That's 10:30 a.m. in the Central Time Zone. This news comes from the Wall Street Journal, which reports that the 18-game package of games will be on Peacock's premier tier and will indeed be exclusive, meaning they won't be available on MLB TV.
Ah,
I don't know.
boo!
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Boo!
I don't know about
Boo!
that. Extra innings or the regional sports networks of the competing teams. That means they have exclusive rights.
Exclusive. Oh gosh, here we go
Ooh,
again.
boy.
With exclusive.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is not. I don't want to cut you off. I didn't mean to cut you off,
Mhm.
Sid, but this is not a way to grow the game. This is not, especially if you're trying to, especially with the off days where you got folks, especially with the light schedule in NBA and also too with with the tournament and such. I just don't. No, I just can't see them doing exclusive. No, that's not going to work on Peacock too, especially if it's the premium service.
Yeah, here's an excerpt from that Wall Street Journal story. The deal with NBC Universal and Unit of Carcast Corporation will involve a package of 18 games, some beginning as early as 10:30 a.m. Chicago time, and others just after 12 o'clock Eastern time, the people said. That would limit the conflict with Sunday games that typically start at 1 p.m. Eastern time, making the telecast more valuable for Peacock. The games will primarily be played on the East Coast. Ooh, that means Yankees, Red
Oh
Sox.
gosh.
Oh, the Yes Network and Nesson and Boston.
They're not going to be very happy with this.
Woo,
No,
boy.
no, that they're not going to be happy with this at all. And yeah, this is like, wow, this is just, especially with the exclusive part of it.
Yeah.
No, this isn't going to work.
Continuing, the games will be available exclusively for paying Peacock subscribers, meaning consumers wouldn't have access through traditional cable TV packages or other streaming services, such as MLB's direct-to-consumer app. The people familiar with the discussion said. Under the terms being discussed with MLB, NBC Sports will produce the pre- and post-game shows as well as the games. The first game expected in early May. When would air on both NBC's broadcast network and Peacock. The people familiar with the discussion said the rest of the 17-game package will be exclusively on Peacock. Sunday afternoon games were part of the Turner's old MLB deal, though many of those games lacked full exclusivity, which they're correct. The new TV deal Turner has with MLB contains exclusive Tuesday night games, just like they do with the NHL on Wednesdays, and of course the NBA during the regular season, along with their Thursday package. And so that's the gist of the story.
Oh,
Lakeena, we talked about baseball growing the game, especially with the young fans in the younger demographic. I know a lot of people are going to they stream their games just like yours truly does in some occasions. But making it exclusive, it depends on how much it is. And if it's a lot, I know many teams are going to do this. I know NBC Sports hasn't said anything yet, especially regarding the teams that they have just like locally here in Chicago with the White Sox. I know the Cubs were discussing it with their Sinclair, which owns the Marquee Sports Network. I know many teams are discussing that, and eventually it's going to get to that point. But how much would you pay for Peacock with that 18-game schedule? If it's too much, I don't think too many people are going to go on board.
Yeah,
especially not being available as part of the extra innings package.
Well, especially if you're trying to, like we've been saying, we were trying to grow the game, and this is not the way to do it. And I feel like, you know what, this is definitely going to be one of those things. You're like, oh dear, this is not how you do it. Especially exclusives, like you said, you get a Yankees, Yankees Red Sox. You're not gonna
or Yankees Tampa Bay Rays, and it's exclusively on Peacock, and not everybody can watch that.
That what's the logic of that? Also, too, if you got Dodgers Giants, I mean, people actually care about that West Coast rivalry.
Yeah,
really. I'm sure they're gonna try to get one of those games on that streaming service. So Not very smart by, but I know this is more of a business decision, but this is a not very smart move by MLB here. But again, you never, you always definitely want to count on MLB when it comes to making questionable decisions.
Let's just hope it doesn't affect my White Sox.
You never know. I mean, especially the White Sox. I'm sure they're going to do like a lot of contending teams. So if, as expected, the White Sox do contend again this year for the Central and for other things, you better believe that they're going to try to get them on the Peacock Network as well, especially since they're on NBC Sports Chicago to begin with.
That's what I said. You kind of seen the calm before the storm, but we'll see what happens with that, the Lakeena. Continuing with our sports media news theme, the broadcasting teams were announced last week for March Madness in conjunction with CBS and Turner. Your announcing crew for the first 4 games, that's Tuesday and Wednesday, from Dayton, Ohio, are as follows. Tom McCarthy, speaking of baseball, he's the Philadelphia Phillies TV announcer, and he does part-time work for CBS with the NFL. Avery Johnson, Steve Lavin, and John Watson.
Oh yeah, I got Rossi doing on the big kids table too in that front. He's actually Coach John's actually pretty good on television. I think he might have found his niche, but that should be a fun one. Of course, we know how great Steve Lavin is. He's been doing this forever, so that should be a fun one. They're doing the first 4. I'm thinking there are a couple of
Tuesday
games.
and Wednesday. Yep.
Even the 16 seed games are usually pretty good. So I know there's some talk that maybe they should kind of deal away with them, but this is sort of like a nice way, especially for those 16 seeds, to say, hey, look, at least we won a tournament game. We'll probably hear our butts kicked by the number 1 seed. Well, that's your UMBC from a few years back against Virginia. But I digress. But but you can say that you won the one NCAA tournament game.
And that means those coaches keep their jobs. We all know what the real bottom line is as far as that.
Exactly.
The rest of your announcing team for the NCAA tournament this year, Iron Eagle, Jim Spanarkel used to do the next games together back in the day, and Jamie Erdahl is one crew. Brad Nessler, Brendan Haywood, and Evan Washburn is another crew. Andrew Catalan, Steve Lapis, and Andy Katz, former ESPNer, and he's with the Big Ten Network now. But Steve Lapis, he's kind of a poor man's Jack Armstrong. Those of you who don't know who Jack Armstrong is, he's a high energy TV analyst for the Toronto Raptors. Steve Lapis is a poor version of that in a respectable way. I like him.
Yeah, he's really good. I love him, and I love him and Andrew together. They have a nice little rapport as well. Easy for me to say, trying to speak a little bit of French here, but but our buddy Spiro D is also going to be a part of that this year. He's going to be with Debbie Antonelli, who's actually really good, by the way. She's one of those people that have been around forever. She's like kind of like Doris Burke. She can do both men's and women's, and also AJ Ross, who is another rising star over there at CBS. They're going to be doing it. They're going to be doing the games in Milwaukee, I believe, starting on Friday. So they got some good games there too.
Also, running out the announcing crews: Brian Anderson, Jimmy Jackson, and Allie LaForce.
I think this is like their 3rd or 4th year together. So
and of course you're going to have Jim Nance, Brent Hill, and
Bill Raftery
as your number 1.
And of course
crew.
Tracy Wolfson on the sidelines as well.
And of course, Kevin Harlan, Dan Bonner, and Reggie Miller, and Dana Jacobson. They're going to call the Illinois Tennessee Chattanooga game, and they're going to call the Loyola Ohio State game on Friday morning.
They can get
we'll get a screaming Kevin Harlan. Yes.
I was gonna say, so you're gonna get a lot of Kevin Harlan energy calls. So get ready for those Illinoisans. But I think Brad Ness, I think, is gonna be a part of one as well. Who's he paired with? I forgot who's he paired with.
Let me go back here if my screen can let me. Brad Nessler will be teaming up with Brendan Hayward and Evan Washburn.
Oh, okay, that should be a good one. Oh, and Brendan Hayward's actually a pretty good. He's actually pretty good if you see him in the studio. So he's actually good. He might. I think he's done a couple of games for them too. So you get a nice little mixture. Get new people. Old, sort of old guards, if you will. I see they brought Reggie Miller back because he didn't do it last year. I guess because of COVID too. I think because they did the bubble, so now it's a little more open. Now you're gonna get guys traveling all over the place too. And also don't expect a lot of TNT games because TBS will be showing some of the games. So that's probably why you won't be seeing too much of those games for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and one more announcing crew: Lisa Byington from the Milwaukee Bucks, the first full-time female TV voice for an NBA team. She's going to be paired up with Steve Smith Avery Johnson, and Lauren Shahadi from MLB Network.
I know you're a big fan of Miss Lauren Shahadi, and
Yes.
also too, yeah, those two, well, those three are gonna have a lot of fun together. I feel like,
Yeah.
yeah. Lisa
It's-
could keep up with them though. I think, she'll be fine. She's a Chicago girl, so she'll be just fine on there. But yeah, those are your announcing teams for the tournament on the men's side. And also too, you got to give some love to the women's side. We got to give some love to the women's side. Also too, now I'm going to be part of that March Madness marketing, finally, it's been forever, but I heard Rebecca Lobo said that they wish they had done that when she was going. Of course, they her 95 UConn team, beat Tennessee to go undefeated. But yeah, so I think it's finally time for the women to get their due as well. They're gonna be part of the bracket challenges and stuff. So your Louisville is your number one seed in that tournament on the women's side, and yeah, so we'll it should be interesting. You got Louisville, Stanford, the defending champions, NC State, and also South Carolina too with our girl Coach Dawn Staley. So yeah, so check out the women's tournament if you want. All of it's going to be on ESPN's Family Network, so they're getting the first four as well too. So they're kind of finally getting their due there. So check out those games on ESPN and on the rest of the Family Networks.
You're listening to Second City Sports live and in living color on the Monday edition right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid, Lakeena are here with you. We got less than 10 minutes left in the show, Lakeena. Speaking of women's college hoops, before we move on, I know that ESPN has been promoting their upcoming 30 for 30 series for ESPN and ESPN Plus for the next, assuming episodes will be released in the next few weeks. They have one on Bill Walton, the Derek Jeter series. And I want to see, I'm sure hopefully this is going to premiere on the big network. I want to see the 1996 USA women's team basketball team. Of course, they won.
I think it will. I think
and of course they won gold with the Olympics here in America in Atlanta. Of course, that's which helped propel to start the WNBA. The WNBA. I'm truly want to see this one.
That should be an interesting one too, and I think how all behind the scenes out of all that, because a lot of things happened in the '96 Olympics, being here in the States in Atlanta, but that was sort of like the start of the women's domination in basketball, and also too with the WNBA and launching as well not too long after that. So that should be a good one there. I think that Derek Jeter one is like 5 or 6 parts.
Yeah.
So. Okay. I guess. That's a lot, but yeah. But I think I'm sure they'll do with all that. So that should be interesting one too. The fascinating one I'm looking forward to is the Bill Walton one, because I know they're going to be covering a lot, everything, and he'll share everything. So, and I'm sure we'll see Dave Patch. We'll see some of his former teammates. I'm sure Larry Bird will also be doing some interviews as well with them. Of course, his days with the Celtics, also in Portland. Portland won their first big time title. So that should be an interesting one there too.
Yeah, let's see if Kareem Abdul-Jabbar appears in that series too, because he was the first guy, that big superstar that played for the late head coach John Wooden at UCLA. Of course, Bill Walton was compared to him for most of his career, and they did battle each other throughout their NBA careers as well. And so I want to see if he's on there. So like you said, Bill Walton tells everything. I want one quick thing about Bill Walton before we move on. Will they give a mention that he did work with Jason Benetti in a Sox game against the Angels a few years ago? I want to see how much time they give to that one.
I'm
not saying you give it a whole half hour, but how many minutes are they going to give to that with Bill Walton calling the baseball game with Jason Benetti?
It depends on how when they film this, because I think that's going to be the thing where it's going to be when they filmed it, because if they filmed it before, then you probably won't see it too much of that, mention too much of that.
Yeah, and speaking of streaming services, we continue with our streaming service thing. Apple has dropped the trailer for They Call Me Magic. The 4-part docuseries premieres on April 27th on Apple TV. And of course, that's their Last Dance version of the document series about Magic Johnson, which the company recently won the bidding war for. Scheduled to appear on this documentary series will be Larry Bird, actor Samuel L. Jackson. How much he screams, we'll see. Michael Jordan, LL Cool J, Shaquille O'Neal, Barack Obama, former President Barack Obama from Chicago, Snoop Dogg, Dwayne Wade, Jerry West, and Michael Wimbach. Michael Wilbon, who's also from Chicago with ESPN, and that's just the starting list. I want to see if some of his old, I'm assuming his old teammates are gonna from the '80s Showtime era is gonna appear with them as well. But I want to see if one of the guys is gonna appear on that documentary. And he was all up in the cameras, and he was a big time late night TV host back in the late '80s and into the '90s. Arsenio Hall. If he doesn't appear on this, something's wrong. Unless he declined, I want to see Arsenio Hall. Yeah, Magic.
He might have declined. Yeah, he might have declined. He might have declined that. I don't know, but maybe he will make an appearance. Who knows? But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. If you have Apple TV or I'm sure he'll stream it somewhere on YouTube. Yeah, you guys could definitely check that out. But yeah, that should be a fun one as it usually is. I mean, Apple TV, like I said, won the bidding wars. I'm sure it's a money thing, so that's part of why. But I'm sure they'll have it on YouTube at some point if you don't have Apple Television. But that should be a fun one as it usually is. And they've done some really good ones with Magic. For all you golf fans, also to Greg Norman, they're going to be doing a doc on him right before the Masters on April 5th. So that should be a fun one. I'm sure they'll talk about his collapse at the '96 Masters with against Nick Faldo and some of the others. Some other he had a couple of tries. He did win a couple of majors, but probably could have won more. So that should be a fun one too. Speaking of golf, for those of you who are watching the players over at TPC Sawgrass, it actually has been raining there, so they're actually going to be starting the final round shortly. The final round as we speak. Cameron Smith from Australia, he's leading right now. Paul Casey is at third place, but that's 17, I should say, over at TPC. I mean, with the wind, that could be feast or famine. So we'll see. Some of the other players are right there in contention. Keegan Bradley, Justin Thomas is also right there as well. He's a few shots back, so we'll see if -12. That's where Cameron Smith is right now as this recording. We'll see if that's the winning score. But the wind shouldn't be a factor, at this point because it has died down and it's nice and pretty out there and sunny. So for all you golf fans over at TPC Sawgrass Players Championship going on right now. That's on ESPN Plus streaming. So for those, that's on ESPN Plus. So it's a Monday finish. So I'm sure NBC, I'm sure the Golf Channel will have some coverage of it as well. So we'll see. So all you golf fans, please check that out. A couple of another firing here. A couple other news real quick. So before we wrap up, Frank Martin has been fired as head coach of South Carolina. Really couldn't really get the ball rolling there like he did in some of the other places he's been at. So that was a tough, that's a tough firing for him. And I'm sure
I think they made it in 2016 to the Final Four, and it's been downhill since.
Yeah. With his son, I think was one of the big parts of that was a walk-on on the team, but they weren't able to capitalize on that. So they parted ways there. Also, too, Christian Kirk has left Arizona to sign with the Jags.
And
And
Trevor Lawrence gets a new target. We'll see what happens with that.
And he and Kyler Murray are good friends. I'm talking about him and Kirk. So that might not make him very happy. The fact that one of his best targets is leaving.
They'll have him scrub down any other stuff from Arizona, but we'll leave that alone. Going back to baseball again before we give out our Final Four picks in college basketball. According to ESPN just a couple moments ago, MLB is to test robo-umps, pitch clocks, larger bases, anti-shift rules in the minors for possible big league use in 2023.
Well, people have been calling for robo-umps forever. So if it does work with the minors,
Why?
I think to get rid of the
Talking about the robo-umps.
Well, I mean, I think people feel like you don't want the Joe West of the world to be deciding things. So if you get robo-umps, bigger base pads. I think as big as this desk I'm on, is that going to be how big the bases are going to be? Some of this stuff. Look, I know they're trying to get younger people to tune in and watch, but there are other ways they can do it. They don't need to do this craziness, but whatever.
All right, now the moment is finally here. Lakeena, I'll start with you. Who is your Final Four teams? Who's going to cut down the Nets on Monday night, April 4th in New Orleans?
I want to preface this by saying that at face value, please, I'm gonna reserve the right to change, especially if my brackets will probably be trashed by Saturday. So whatever. I actually have Tennessee coming out of the South. region. Begrudgingly, I'm picking Gonzaga, but then again, you never know. Coming out of the West, I have let's see, this East region is going to be tough, but I've got Kentucky coming out of the East. In the Midwest, I have Kansas, and I have Kansas winning the whole thing. Again, please don't take it at face value.
Out of the West region, I'll take Gonzaga. Out of the East region, I hate to do this, Lakeena, and we're supposed to be so-called experts. I'm taking Kentucky.
Okay.
Out of the Midwest bracket, I'm with you. I'm going with Kansas because the road is pretty quote-unquote easy for them. And out of the South, I will go with an upset here. I will go with Villanova.
Oh, okay. I can definitely see Villanova perhaps doing that. Look, they got a veteran squad. They know a couple of guys been on one of those championship teams, so I could see them perhaps doing that.
And so in my final four, I'll have Villanova versus Kansas. I'll have Kansas going to the championship game. In the other bracket, Gonzaga versus Kentucky, I'll have Gonzaga. Gonzaga will cut down the nets. They'll learn their lesson from last year, and they'll finally bring it home. Mark Few and crew, get ready to celebrate down the Big Easy.
All right. Okay. I got Kansas and Kentucky. Those are winning. Kansas and Kentucky go for the championship. I got Kansas winning it. So this should be a classic game. Like I said, I do have Gonzaga coming out of that West region, but again, you've got some teams that might have something to say. Like you got the 5-12s, 4-13s, and will Illinois be one of those 4-13 teams that get upsets? It'll happen like four or five times. So we'll see. It should be a fun term as it usually is. With that said, you follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan_McGee on the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on Twitter in the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. Don't forget to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Sports Zone Chi. Make sure you catch the audio version of this podcast, Second City Sports, by subscribing to War on Anchor. We are available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And make sure you follow War Media at WAR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
And don't forget to go to Sports Zone Chicago's YouTube page or Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page to catch our exclusive breakdown of the brackets with our good friend Andy Mazer from WGN Radio that we did last night. We'll retweet out the links from now until Thursday to get you ready for the tournament. And don't forget to catch Second City Sports every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, live in the living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as you kids would say, every Monday, every Friday, you can listen to Second City Sports live in the 11 color from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
All right, we're probably gonna have even more news as we, we'll talk more about it as we get into on Friday, because I'm sure there's gonna be even more news, for both MLB and NFL. So we'll have a lot to talk about still, of course, with the tournament going on in the background as well. For Sid, I'm Lakeena. Be good to each other. You're not gonna get vaccinated. Wash your hands. Wear your mask. And enjoy the nice weather that's coming up here in Illinois, because it's going to be really nice in spring. So for Sid, I'm Lakeena. This is Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, and we'll see you Friday.
Go Bulls! Holla!
Enjoy the tournament, everybody.